Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Flexing her fingers, she created a scanner to pick up on the closest cluster of mana that was approaching the city. Seems like they're approaching from the north. Shiro muttered as she patted Een on the head. Fly above the clouds and go north for now. I'll tell you when we can dive down. She instructed. Key. Nodding her head, Een flapped her wings and shot into the clouds. Creating a pair of binoculars, she tried to spot the reinforcements and saw a few distant shadows. Bingo! She grinned. Een, are you ready for some slight upgrades to help us? Shiro asked with a smile. Key. Seeing that Een agreed, Shiro placed her palm on Yin's body and closed her eyes. A thin layer of nanobots spread outwards and coated her feathers in a type of reflective material that camouflaged her with the clouds. This will help us hide when we come out of stealth. As for you, Lysandra, I'll do the same with your wings. I want you to practice assassination and the use of your wings. Shiro turned to Lysandra, who nodded and spread out her wings. Once her wings were camouflaged, Lysandra jumped off Yin's back and started to fly alongside her. Here's an earpiece. I'll instruct you about how you should kill them while I do the same, Shiro said and handed her an earpiece. Flexing her fingers, she created a dagger and a needle loaded on her free hand. The loader would place nanotech needles perfectly between her fingers and would start to eat away at anything it touched once thrown. If she was to take someone off guard with this, she'll even be able to kill level 70s with a single needle. Of course, that was only if she took them off guard. You two ready? She asked. Key. Yes. Hearing a positive response, Shiro smiled. Good, now let's go. She grinned. ####. We're getting closer to Kairosa Branch, Master. A man, shrouded by a black cloak, said towards the woman leading the group of mounts. Amen. They dare kill my two darling daughters. Let's see how I torture them when I'm done. The woman chuckled grimly. Has there been any more reports from the Cermak family? She asked. Not yet. But don't worry, the cage activated successfully and they're trapped in the city. Compared to our battalion of 1,000 troops, they're nothing. The man replied. Good. I'll take care of the bothersome Ospar family when we get there. After I was able to find a good EXP spot, I leveled up quite a bit compared to the old geezers they have protecting them. The woman smiled. The highest level people in the city were approaching the level 80 mark, while she had managed to level up to 85 after finding a mutated dungeon that was just up her alley. Her magic was able to counter all of the monsters inside the dungeon, allowing her to level up quickly and surpass even the highest level elder in the city. Indeed, Branch Master. But we should still be careful. From what the reports said, they've cleared the raid. While they don't know where the items are, they might be in the hands of the elders. Since it was an emergency raid, they would be able to get the first clear. The man warned. Hush. It's not as if we haven't prepared for that yet. Didn't I bring my husband's treasured item with us? With this, even if they did get some amazing item in the raid, it'll be disabled. The woman sneered. However, when she realized the lack of response, she turned around only to widen her eyes in shock. The man that she was talking to had lost his head completely and fell off his mount. Attack! Everyone into formation! The woman quickly shouted out and erected a barrier around herself. A few needles suddenly entered her peripherals as she quickly bent her body back and avoided them. Gah! Gah! Two of the guards that followed behind her had needles pierce their eyes. Exploding into a mass of metal, the nanobots started to eat their way inside the guards' skulls while they clawed at their eyes in no avail. They couldn't remove the nanobots and could only suffer from the pain helplessly. Flicking her wrist, the woman sent a barrage of crimson spikes towards the direction the needles came from. However, she frowned when spell missed. With the amount of spikes that she launched, there was no way that the person could have dodged out of the way in time. But reality proved her wrong. A flash of light appeared in the center of the battalion as several sword wounds appeared all over their bodies. However, unlike the previous attacks, they weren't fatal. Realizing that this meant there were multiple people attacking them, the woman made up her mind and jumped off her mount. Raising her hand up into the air, red mist started to gather towards their location and sealed off all exits. Blood, thunder, tribulation. The woman shouted out as flashes of lightning could be seen in the mist. This skill would target everyone inside the area, except for those that she had marked. This was the best option for her current predicament as they couldn't see the enemy. But to her surprise, the thunder didn't target anyone, meaning that the enemy wasn't inside the area. Impossible. She widened her eyes. Asterisk, boom. Quickly turning her head towards the explosion, she was able to get a glimpse of Shiro, who waved her hand slightly before disappearing. Spread out, she shouted, and dispersed the red mist. Since she knew that it didn't target Shiro, she decided not to waste any mana on it. What she didn't know was that it was part of Shiro's illusion. It did indeed target her. She just dodged at the last moment and made sure that the woman couldn't sense the spell's activation. The difference between fighting humans when compared to monsters was that they strategized and analyzed the situation in battle. As their MP is severely limited compared to monsters, they had to use each point strategically. If a skill didn't work, they won't use it. In some situations, one may say that fighting a human was much easier than fighting a monster. This was the reason as to why Shiro used her illusions to trick the woman. She had to admit that the spell was a troublesome one. Not only did it strike at her constantly, if she was hit, there's no doubt that she'll take a heavy amount of damage. As the red mist dispersed, they looked up at the sky and saw a phoenix spreading out its wings. Asterisk key. Suddenly, for Tier 3 magic circles appeared around them. Meteors started to fall from the sky, while dark star fire jumped from person to person. Annoying. The woman shouted out as she jumped up into the air. Pushing her palms out, a pulse of red energy erupted out from her and extinguished the flames forcefully. Seems like the difference in power is a bit much for Een. Shiro thought as she dashed at the woman. Sinew LVL 85 Blood Sage. Reaping the lives of the people that were between them, Shiro flexed her fingers and created a handful of daggers. Celestial Path. Twisting her body, she threw the daggers at Sinew and canceled out her barrier. Narrowing her eyes, Sinew bit her finger and spat out some blood. Blood sacrifice. Fine, she commanded as chains formed from the blood and launched towards Shiro. Phantom Path. Shifting her body, she activated her own passive flight and avoided the chains. However, additional chains protruded from the individual segments in an attempt to bind her. Scoffing slightly, she summoned all 7 copies of Ataraxia and stopped the chains from wrapping around her. Sword Domain plus Celestial Path. Controlling her swords to strike at the chains, she canceled them out and dashed towards Sinew. But in the time she took to shatter the chains, Sinew had already prepared another spell. A lowly level 57 like you should just grovel beneath me, she cried out as her aura magnified exponentially. Blood sacrifice. Hell's Gate. She cried out as a portal opened up beneath them. Calamity Dragon Arrow plus Celestial Path. Grabbing the air in front of her, she created a nanotech bow and aimed it towards the portal. While she did this, Sinew sent another attack at Shiro in an attempt to stop her from interfering with the portal. Asterisk bang. Firing the arrow, she used the momentum to dodge Sinew's attack. Asterisk boom. Shattering into countless particles, the Hell's Gate spell was forcefully cancelled. While the dragon arrow couldn't destroy it in normal situations, the addition of Celestial Path was able to weaken the spell enough for the arrow to work. Who are you? Sinew asked as she never heard of anyone being able to cancel out spells at her level. Not only that, she was canceling out the spells of a level 85. That was a difference of 28 levels. I'm a mage's worst nightmare. Shiro replied with a grin. Mage's worst nightmare? Arrogant. Sinew glared at her with disdain. I won't waste any words on you. Shiro replied with a smile. Flickering towards her, she summoned Akram and dual-wielded it with Ataraxia. Snapping her fingers, Sinew activated a Tier 3 instant cast type spell. Blood sacrifice. Transfusion. She grinned. Shiro widened her eyes as she realized that her leg had just given up under her. Looking at her status, she noticed her HP being drained every second as her vision blurred. While my skill can only be counted as decent among my other skills, it's more than enough to deal with you. What's wrong? Can't cancel out this skill. Sinew sneered as she prepared a Tier 3 destruction spell. Looking at the giant magic circle that was slowly expanding in size, Shiro smiled. Celestial Rune, Lyre. Effect. Increase health regen massively. The lower the current HP count, the higher the regeneration. Consumes weapon durability. As her health drain started to balance out, her control over her body returned. What? How did you get out of it so fast? Sinyu narrowed her eyes. No need to inform a dead woman. Shiro replied, activating her combination of element shift, celestial armament, and celestial element wheels. This time, however, she chose her main element in this life. Ice. Her hair shifted from silver white to an ice blue, which held a slight hint of purple. On top of this, she paired it up with her nanotech armor that specialized in speed. Sword Domain plus Ice Demon's Calamitous Domain plus Ice Chain, Celestial Path. Activating 3 skills at once, she charged towards Sinyu. Black snow wrapped around them as everything it touched turned to ice. With the assistance of the Celestial Path enhanced ice chains, even if they did put up any form of barrier, it would be negated quickly, allowing the snow to eat away at them. Futile. Sinyu glared at Shiro with anger. Activating her destruction-type spell, the weather started to change. Dark clouds gathered as blood rain started to fall. You're not the only one that tampers with domains, girl. Clasping her palms together, Sinyu's MP started to decrease rapidly. Each of the blood droplets that fell from the sky started to shift as they soon became bloodworms that had semi-transparent wings attached to their backs. Asterisk Shichichi. Swarming towards her location, the worms were somewhat resistant against the corroding snow as Shiro reacted quickly. Flicking her arm outwards, a surge of cold air exploded out from her as her killing intent raged. Asterisk KRRRR. A layer of ice coated their bodies and stopped them in their tracks. Fu. Breathing out a mouthful of cold air, Shiro stared at Sinyu with cold, emotionless eyes. Activating all 3 paths of her martial arts, she used Rift Walker to appear beside Sinyu. However, as confident as she was with her overall attack power and skills, she knew that she was still lacking a little power to kill a level 85 without Berserk skills. Unfortunately, her Berserk skill, Ataraxia, was still on cooldown since she had used it in the raid. While she did have others, Soul Sword, Demonic Frenzy, and Akram, their backlashes were a little more serious. Soul Sword decreased her stats by 25% for 4 days. Demonic Frenzy decreased her stats by 90% for 5 days, and finally, Akram severely decreased her stats for 10 days. The worst part about this was that it never mentioned how much it decreased, so it was a mystery. With these 3 Berserk skills, her best option would be Soul Sword. Thankfully, there was the option of fusing the Soul Sword with another weapon sword temporarily, so she didn't need to hold it in her mouth or something. Activating Soul Sword, she fused it together with the Godslayer's sword. A black mist wrapped around her hand as the sword glowed with a dim red light. Looking at the sword traveling towards her neck, Sinyu had a bad feeling well up in her heart that cried out for her to avoid that sword at all costs. Gritting her teeth, she decided to use the item that she had borrowed from her husband. She wanted to save this item for the elders since it had a limited amount of durability, but the situation was quite serious. Tier 4 Suppression Field. 2/10 uses left. When activated, those who are Tier 4 will experience a 10% decrease in stats. For anyone under Tier 4, they'll experience a 30% decrease in stats. Duration, 3 minutes. Injecting mana into the orb, a pulse of energy encompassed everything within a 200-meter radius. In addition to this, she also activated her true elemental armor in an attempt to protect her body and stop Shiro from decapitating her. Crimson armor wrapped around her body as her defensive strength was increased. Ain and Lysandra were also affected as they quickly retreated for a short moment to survey the situation. As for Shiro, despite having felt a 30% decrease to her stats and the fact that Sinyu had activated her armor, she continued her attack since the passive effect was very useful in her current situation. One slice against the skin will inject a lethal poison through her enemies' systems while their soul is slowly corrupted. This would limit their combat potential as they'll be distracted by the pain. However, when her sword clashed with Sinyu's true elemental armor, she could clearly feel the strength rebounding back into her body. So the difference was still a bit too much to bridge, huh? Shiro thought to herself and activated a second Berserk skill. There was no way that she'll let such a juicy pile of EXP escape her grasp. Demonic Frenzy. Effect, double stats for 5 minutes. Her eyes became bloodshot as a demonic aura exploded out from her body. Widening her eyes in horror, Sinyu felt all her hairs stand on end as death was near. No matter what skill she used now, there was no hope in avoiding death. If she used a spell, it would be countered by Shiro's celestial path. Asterisk, bang. The force of her strike sent Sinyu's head flying into the sky as the other soldiers watched in horror. Their branch master had just died to someone that was 28 levels lower than her. As they digested the information, they realized how much danger they were in and that their best bet was to retreat into the city. That way, they could potentially use the citizens as hostages to salvage the situation. Collecting Sinyu's body, Shiro turned her attention to the battalion that was currently in a panic. She had more than 4 minutes left on her berserk skill, 3 minutes to kill them and 1 minute to retreat. That way, when the backlash hits, she'll be safe. Readying her sword, she dived into the battalion, cutting up anyone that was in her path. Her goal was to kill them all, while the battalion's goal was to reach the city. By the time the 2-minute mark was reached, they were already too close to the city and she couldn't continue her slaughter. I'll leave for now. Shiro thought to herself in regret, since there were too many potential dangers if she was to get closer. If the elders from the families decided to attack her then, she'll be too weak to counter. Flying into the air, she regrouped with her 2 daughters and quickly left the area. In one battle, despite still having let quite a lot of them go, she had managed to reap quite the large amount of rewards. Unfortunately, due to how much Sinyu had carried on her body, she could only let the remaining corpses go unclaimed. But she wasn't too bothered since she managed to get a few levels as compensation. She leveled up 3 times and reached level 60, while Ian reached 61. Lysandra was linked to her, so she too was level 60. Not only that, she had also managed to upgrade her title with the amount of humans that she killed. Advanced Monster, 21/1000 humans killed. Stat points are now worth an addition 250% of the original value. Before, 1 VIT equals 50 HP. After, 1 VIT equals 125 HP. With this, she estimated that if the title was to undergo 2 more upgrades, she'll be 3 times as powerful as people of her level. A feat that she couldn't achieve easily if she was a human. In addition to her monster title getting an upgrade, she had also unlocked 2 race skills that were unique to her race and class. The first skill was something called Queen's Decree. Sylph Queen's Decree, a skill that severely reduces the effectiveness of elemental skills and spells. If the enemy within the area of effect is a tier lower than you, there is a chance that any elemental skill and spell is sealed off for the entire duration this decree is active. Cost, 40% of MP, Tier 3. Duration, 10 minutes. Cooldown, 20 minutes. With this skill, she'd be able to limit all high-tier enemies since their skill set always revolved around a certain element that they have an affinity with. Not only that, if she were to face off against people who were lower tier than her, their elemental skills will all be sealed off. Once she reached Tier 5, a large division point amongst adventurers, she'll be able to seal off the elements of most adventurers. However, her goal was much higher. Once she reached Tier 8 God, none will be able to use their full power against her. Of course, that's only if there wasn't a Tier 9 or higher being. There was also the fact that she had other skills to suppress her enemies as well. Nodding her head in satisfaction, she glanced at the second skill that she received from leveling up to 60. Mystic Empowerment. Primary effect. For a short period of time, a single element of your choosing is enhanced with the mystic property. This will increase the effectiveness of the element by 30%, while the cost will be reduced by 20%. Secondary effect. When applied to oneself, user will receive a 10% increase to INT, AGI, and DX for 5 minutes. Cost, 10% of MP, Tier 3. Duration, 5 minutes. Cooldown, 10 minutes. This was essentially a weakened version of a berserk skill without any backlash. Only regret was that it enhanced 3 statuses rather than the whole board. But that was her being wishful. Most berserk skills would enhance a limited amount of stats with exception to high-tier berserk skills. She had been lucky that all of her berserk skills were some of the best due to their sources. However, the main benefit of this skill had to be the fact that it was able to enhance an element by 30%. Even at her tier right now, 30% was an astronomical amount, never mind what it would be like when she reached the higher tiers. Laying on Yin's back, Shiro looked at the sky while Lysandra sat beside her. "How are you feeling, Mom?" she asked in worry. "It's fine. Just the backlash of my berserk skills are a little annoying," Shiro replied with a smile. Suppressing the pain that she was feeling in her body, she sat up and looked at the task sheet that she took from Chunyu. Striking the Kairosa raid off the list, she stored it away in her inventory. She wasn't going to do the other tasks just yet. But first, since she had reached level 60, she was finally able to equip her Kaiser Dragon set armor. Replacing her current armor, she couldn't help but look at the orange-grade helmet and shake her head. She was a little hasty in upgrading it and had wasted a good opportunity. If she had used it on her current armor, the benefits were bound to be impressive. On the other hand, if she didn't upgrade it, she wouldn't have received the percentage increases to magic attack, efficiency, and lifesteal effectiveness. Without these, she would have definitely struggled a lot more. Shaking the thoughts from her mind, she understood that what's done was done. Once she was done with equipping her new armor, she checked her stats. Name: Shiro. Race: Mystic Fae. Level: 60. Class: Mystic Sylph Queen, Snowmancer. HP: 630,000/2 for 31,250. MP: 304,050/5, 593,750. STR: 15,000 plus 300 plus 2, 250. VIT: 14,000 plus 1,000 plus 700. INT: 30,000 plus 2,200 plus 4, 500. AGI: 18,000 plus 1,000 plus 900. DEX: 13,000 plus 300 plus 650. DEF: 6,000 plus 1,500 plus 900. Equals title bonus, 7/7 and 3/7 Kaiser Wyvern set effect. 10% increase to DF, INT, STR, and 5% increase overall. Unassigned points, 0. Equipment: tap to show. In one night, her HP had shot past the 2 million mark while her MP reached an astounding 5.5 million. Such numbers were unheard of for a level 60. Not only did her SSS class give her more passive point increases per level, her monster title doubled their values, thus resulting in her monstrous stats right now. However, she knew that if she were to continue her slaughter of humans, her stats would increase more and rival that of top-tier monsters such as Een. But if she were to do that, she'd be ignoring her bottom line and doing everything in the name of self-interest. At that point, she'd be no different from the scientists that had experimented on her. On this road to power, she wasn't going to abandon her true self. "How are you feeling, Mom?" Lysandra asked. A little sluggish, but nothing too serious. Shiro smiled, moving her arm around to prove that she was fine. "Don't push yourself too much. You'd just fight a level 85. Most would just die instantly, you know." Lysandra sighed. "Haha, it's fine. I got my celestial path and mana disruption bullets. Without these two, even I'll struggle with a level 85, you know? Plus, it was good luck that she was a mage. If she was a warrior type, then the fight would have ended a lot differently." Shiro replied with a soft chuckle. "You think the people in the city can handle it? Plus, how many people did you kill at the banquet?" The rest of the people that fled towards the city are relatively high-leveled, but they're in a state of panic. As long as the families aren't incompetent, they should be able to handle it. As for how many I killed, well, it should be enough for them to behave for a while. After tonight, the Argent family and the Kasidan family are now the ruling powers besides the Osbar family. However, the Osbar family would be weakened as well since I took Nimue away from them." Shiro shrugged slightly. "Hugh, that's kinda evil, you know, Mom. Isn't their whole mansion and everything they do powered by Nimue? If you take her away, they'll suffer quite a bit, won't they?" Lysandra asked. "Well, I never said I was a good person, did I? Plus, they owe me a little for helping them avert the danger. Count this as payment." Shiro replied with a grin. "Big sis is a glutton while Mom is a scammer. Heis." Lysandra thought to herself and signed inwardly. "Well, don't think about it too much. So how was your experience anyways?" Shiro asked. "It was hard. I'm better when I fight them face to face since my fighting style is stylized towards one-to-one combat. Lysandra replied. Indeed. If I had to sum it up for you, you're like a paladin-type class. You can support while also fight on your own. But there aren't many moments where you can fight one-on-one, so you need to learn assassination as well. Or parts of it anyways. That way, if I do need to send you on some errands in the future, I can at least be sure that you can handle yourself if you were to face off against a large crowd of people. Shiro explained. I understand. Lysandra nodded. Good. As for Ian, well, there's not much to say, is there? Shiro chuckled and patted Ian on her head. You just need to improve your control a little. Asterisk key. But it was thanks to you too that I could fight the lady on her own. Honestly, without you girls, I would have been swarmed and forced to retreat. Shiro smiled gratefully. While being alone was calming, it was still better to move as a group. That way, she could avoid moments of being severely outnumbered. She'll have a better chance with companions to help her. That being said, we should party up with the other girls again and go out for one of the faction tasks, shouldn't we? Travel around a bit, you know. Shiro suggested. I'm all right with that. Lysandra nodded since she was curious about the other places in this world, as it is quite different to her original world. Asterisk key. Ian agreed as well because new places mean new food for her to taste. That settles it then. Shiro smiled. Suddenly, she noticed that her phone had received an emergency email from Nadash. Hurry back to the faction. We've got an important guest visiting us in a few days, and apparently, they have connections to your friend, Lyrica Valenstein. They have connections to Lyrica? Shiro muttered while furrowing her brows. Ian, can you increase your speed? Seems like we need to return to the faction quickly. She instructed. As they approached Farisha, Shiro narrowed her eyes at the Winter's Grace building and ignored the fact that everyone could see Ian. Jumping off before they landed at the Mount Station, she landed softly while Lysandra and Ian dropped in behind her. Discussions could be heard as they couldn't believe that Ian was the giant phoenix that they had seen earlier. Releasing a bit of her pressure like what Nadash had done before, she forced the disciples to shut up and look away. Asterisk clack clack clack. Her footsteps rang out as she approached the main building. She could see Nadash waiting by the door. When she saw Shiro walking towards her with her two daughters following behind her, she gave her a small wave. You were quite fast, weren't you? Nadash smiled. Amen. Can you tell me who's coming and how they're related to Lyrica? Shiro asked as her face was serious. Sure, but this isn't suitable for discussion. Let's talk inside. Nadash nodded as her face lost all playfulness. Sitting down in one of the private rooms, Shiro had Ian and Lysandra sit by the side while she talked with Nadash. A week or so ago, we've received a notice from one of the Elven royal families, the Valenstein family. Apparently, it was no coincidence that your friend had the Valenstein name as she is part of the royal family. However, from their tone, it seems like they were less than pleased at this fact. Nadash said seriously, handing Shiro a few documents. Reading the documents, Shiro narrowed her eyes. And you're telling me this with such urgency because? She asked. Because I want to warn you and your friends to be careful. Since their tone suggests some hostility, you should be on guard in case they attack your friends. You know how royal families are. It's a place where they fight against each other with their lives on the line. Since you're my friend, this is the least I can do. Nadash replied. Thank you. Shiro nodded. From what she could tell from the documents, it seemed like Lyrica was one of the youngest members of the royal family. She was sent to New York because she was incompetent, but urgent matters came up in the family and required the presence of Lyrica. However, their tone suggested that they felt Lyrica was more of an object than a person, one that they threw away when she had no use, and one that they retrieved once she was needed. I suppose I'm needed on the day that they arrive? She asked. Yes. I also received an order from the faction leader. She told me to pass this message on to you. Nadash nodded and handed her an envelope that was sealed up by a magic circle. Hearing Nadash mention the faction leader, Shiro looked up in interest. Despite having searched for her information online, not much was known about the leader. Hardly anyone knew of her appearance as well. Apparently, the current leader was the secret disciple of the old leader. When the old leader was summoned to participate in a large attack on the demon continent, she laid down the order that her disciple was going to be the next leader and that her words were to be followed without question. In the first year that the new leader ascended, She had solved several large problems that had plagued the faction, earning her the trust of the elders across most branches. While some were still suspicious and had even wanted to stage a coup, they disappeared without warning. Many knew that they had been dealt with, but said nothing at all. After all, one wrong move, and they could be next. Once all the pests had disappeared from the faction, she continued to build up the faction's foundations, increasing the fame and resources the faction received. On her third year of being the leader, she entered seclusion and would only help out with the most urgent matters. Her trusted aides helped her manage the faction, and most requests came from the aides. For the faction leader to give her a message, she was curious as to what she wanted to say. She told me that you should drip a droplet of your blood onto the magic circle and read the message in your own room. Natash informed and stood up. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll leave for now. Take care. Natash smiled and left the room. Looking at the letter, Shiro narrowed her eyes before storing it away. Let's go to my room, she said, turning to her two daughters. Say, Mum, can I eat the magic crystals that have gathered in the room? Een asked as her eyes glistened with joy. Go for it. Shiro nodded as she had no reason to reject her. Returning back to her room, she sat down on a chair while Een walked over to the mana condenser. Lysandra sat on the bed and started to meditate. Biting her finger, she pressed it against the seal. Asterisk, boom. A light enveloped the room as Shiro quickly retreated in case of any traps. As the light died down, she saw a letter on the table. If you are reading this, this means that you have passed the blood test and you're who I think you are. First of all, I don't know how you survived his attack, but I'm relieved. I'm sorry for not being able to do much to help you back then, but my hands were tied. Second, it seems like you have restarted your level, but this time you're much more powerful than before. Unfortunately, your parents may not like the fact that you're still a mage despite being so powerful. You know how they are. Anyhow, I'll keep your survival a secret for now. Get stronger quickly since your parents have been worried. Keep your head low and don't get that man's attention like you did before. While you have changed your name to Shiro and had even dyed your hair, it's not that much different from your old name, you know. Shiro is pretty much the opposite of Kuromi. Heis, all his time and your naming sense is still pretty bad. Reminds me of your parents when they suggested to just name you Kuro. Also, you picked up quite a strange habit. Asses. Really? I mean, I knew you had some weird obsessions, but damn, didn't think you'd go from balls crushing to ass busting. You even got a new nickname of a **** destroying princess. Sorry for rambling on for so long. I have quite a lot to talk to you, but time is short and the situation doesn't allow that just yet. As for your new friend Lyrica, I did a bit of research on her and her family for you since you might need it. You were always the sentimental type. In regard to your friend, you should keep your eye on her if you care for her. The Valentine family were oddly quiet whenever someone asked about her. Quite suspicious if you ask me. They're also known for their ruthless actions, so be careful. I've compiled all of the intel I found about her on the next page. Unfortunately, I'll have to end this letter here for now. You should know how to contact me, right? When you reach B class, give me a call, okay? But before that, don't contact me. I want to tell you why, but it's a bit risky right now. I'll send you a map about how you can find me so we can have a good chat like old times. Good luck and get stronger quickly. I miss you, you know? Yuki. P.S. How did you get so young? Tell me the secret next time, okay? She knows about the old host? Shiro muttered in confusion. From what the letter had shown her, Yuki, or rather the faction leader, knew the person who this body belonged to. Not only that, she also knew her for a long time and even had connections to her parents. From this letter, it seems like this Yuki also knew about Kuromi's enemy. Shiro thought to herself. A single letter was able to reveal quite a bit about her identity. Shaking her head, she stored the letter away. She was in a passive situation where she could only wait for her letters and couldn't contact her. She said that she shouldn't contact her until she reached B class. Understanding that she must have her reasons, especially since she stated that it was a bit risky, Shiro set it aside for now to look at the information Yuki gathered about Lyrica. Looking at the separate document, she realized just how little she knew about Lyrica. As the youngest of the Wallenstein family, she should have been cared for like she was the star of the family. Unfortunately, both her mother and father had died, leaving her defenseless. With her older siblings and relatives fighting for the throne, she was discarded at a young age in New York so that she couldn't interfere with the fight for the crown. However, During the time that Lyrica had been with Shiro, they discovered that she had entered a powerful faction like Winter's Grace and had even entered C-class within such a short time. With her potential exposed, the family wanted to bring her back to the Elven continent so that they could deal with her. As to how they want to deal with her, Yuki hadn't found out anything. This is quite serious, Shiro muttered with a frown. Since Lyrica belonged to the Elven royal family, that meant that enemies that she might have to face off against could very well be in the level 100s. If they were unlucky, there might even be people that had reached level 200 plus tier 5. Currently, she was C-class/tier 3, which was from level 51 to 100. B-class/tier 4 was 101 to 200. Once they reached tier 5, or rather, a class, they could easily destroy cities and the such. Even if she had the silver dagger which boosted her up to B-class along with all her berserk skills, she wouldn't be able to match an A-class individual. The point gain, skills and difference in stats was simply too wide despite having skills that would double her status. Hell, if a top-tier C-class warrior showed up, she'll be forced to use her berserk skills, never mind monstrous people that reached B-class. What a dilemma. She sighed. For the first time in her current life, she didn't know how to proceed. As much as she wanted to follow Lyrica to her continent, it was too much of a risk. Once she enters a fight, she'll need to go 100% to even have a chance of survival. Naturally, that meant that she had to expose the existence of her Snowmancer class. While this world's technology couldn't be compared to what was in her old world, it wasn't bad to the point where information couldn't be shared effectively. Once she exposes her class, with the power of the internet, her existence will be exposed to the world. They'll know what she looked like and be put on top priority due to the nature of her class. The world was full of strange items and equipment. What's to say that there isn't one which could track her down no matter where she was in the world and expose her identity? This will render her illusions and disguises useless. Plus, as the royal family of a race, they will surely have ways to stop a person from disguising their identity. This meant that she couldn't hide the fact that she was a monster as well. It might be time to reveal who I am to the girls. Once they know, it'll at least make the situation a bit better. She thought to herself, if she reveals her status as a monster, it will resolve the issue of them freezing up when they find out in the Elven continent. Deep down, she hoped that they'll be okay with it. That way, she wouldn't need to get her hands dirty. One cannot live their life alone and without companions. But trying to find ones that you trust is the hard part. For a person with so many secrets on her, trying to find someone she could trust was almost an insurmountable task for her. Sigh. Sighing out loud. She couldn't believe that a single letter had flipped her life upside down. Not only did she find someone who knew of the body's old owner, but she also needs to expose herself to her friends as well. I might be able to expose my Snowmancer class as just items that I received. While it may place me on the radar, at least I won't be sought out by everyone. Shiro thought to herself, if she exposes her weapons as just items, she'll be able to decrease her priority level since items that is 5 levels under one's level will not be usable anymore. While she may be a target for those lower level than her, the high levels won't give a crap unless they have someone related to them who wants those items. At the same time, while the danger of revealing Snowmancer had decreased, her status as a monster is still troublesome. Having a powerful monster walk around isn't something that humanity wants. Not only that, if the monster was one that could easily kill those of higher level, it must be killed in case they became a danger in the future. Arg! Annoying! Shiro shouted out in anger. Yoa! Why did you shout all of a sudden? I almost choked on the crystal. In cried out. Sorry, just stuck on what I should do for now. Shiro replied apologetically. What's wrong, Mom? Lysandra asked in concern. You see, Lysandra, a friend of mine, is needed back in her own country. But there's a very big chance that she'll be in danger, so I want to go to help her. If I do, my status as a monster and my class will be revealed, placing me in a situation where I'll be hunted down by those higher level than me. Shiro explained. That's quite the dilemma, huh? Lysandra paused for a moment. Shiro was just a level 60 monster right now. While she could kill those higher level than her, it was only limited to mages since she could counter their magic. But if it was a warrior, she'll be forced to use her berserk skills. Even now, she was still suffering from some of the backlashes. I'll think of something later. For now, I'll go get the Phoenix Rebirth pill. Shiro scratched her head and stood up. It wasn't like her to be this worried, so it felt weird. In order to take her mind off the situation for now, she decided to do all she could in order to get stronger. The first step would be to repair her body a lot more. Speaking of which, did I ever get Chinyu's contact details? Shiro paused as she realized a small problem. Seems like I was a bit hasty. Pulling out the task sheet, she made a scanner and scanned the sheet. With this, she'll be able to track down anyone who had come into contact with this item. Once she searched for the closest signal, she would find Chinyu, or at least she hoped so. Seeing that the scanner had a positive response, Shiro sighed in relief. I'll head out for a bit. You two can either stay here or go to the canteen. Just be careful so that you wouldn't get lost, okay? Shiro reminded. Got it. Ian nodded and waved her hand. Watching Shiro leave the room, Ian turned to Lysandra. Want to empty out their pantry with me? She asked. I'm fine. I'll just make sure that you don't mess around too much, big sis. Lysandra smiled. Che, no fun. I'll eat your fill as well, then don't worry. ####. Flickering through the city, Shiro found that Chunyu had been staying in one of the wealthier hotels. Scaling up the building, she reached the window of his room. From the scanner, it seems like he's in the toilet right now. I guess I'll wait inside. She thought to herself and phased through the window. Sitting down on the soft bed, she crossed her legs and started to play around on her phone. After a short moment, she could hear some wet footsteps as she guessed that he must have been in the shower. Hearing the door open, she looked up. Oh. Both of them paused as an awkward situation occurred between them. Currently, Chinyu was in the nude while the towel was around his head. He had planned to get dressed in his room, but didn't expect to see a certain guest sit on his bed. Meanwhile, Shiro had a rather passive face while looking at the naked Chinyu. Nice body. She forced a smile and pointed at his lower half. Ga? Get the hell out of my room. Chinyu shouted out as he quickly covered himself. So why are you in my room? Chinyu asked as he sat on the chair. Of course, he was fully clothed. Why were you naked? Shiro replied with a humorous smile on her face. I had a shower. What's your excuse? Chinyu retorted. I needed to find you. Plus, you know you could change inside the toilet, right? Why did walk out naked? I like my clothes to be fresh rather than being steamed. But I'm pretty sure that I have warning devices on the door and window. How did you even get in? This is a violation of private space. He complained. Secret. Plus, you should give me some compensation for exposing my eyes to your little brother, you know. Shiro grinned as she pointed at his lower half. Oi, you broke into my room. That's your own fault. Chinyu replied. I suppose, but having a beautiful girl wait for you at your bed while you shower should be quite an honor, you know. As if, I'd rather be single than to expose myself to you. Who knows when I'll lose my never mind. Anyways, why are you here? You never explained that. Chinyu coughed slightly as he guided the conversation back on track. Fine, I'll let you off for now. I'm here to cash in on the task. I've finished one of them, so I expect my rebirth pill. Shiro shrugged and flicked a USB towards him. Catching the USB, Chinyu raised an eyebrow. Is that why you're suddenly level 60? Yup. Alright, I'll check the contents first, then I'll send Branchmaster a message about it. Chinyu nodded. Say Lil Chen, why don't you follow me instead? I'm sure it's more fun than to follow that Branchmaster of yours. Shiro offered. No thanks. The chances of death are probably higher if I followed you. Chinyu rolled his eyes. With the amount of animosity that Shiro could attract from males and females in regards to her habits, he was better off staying as far away as possible. So you value safety over hanging out with beautiful girls. Shiro grinned as she wanted to mess around with him. Of course, it's a no-brainer. Chinyu replied while walking over to his table and brought out a laptop. Then what about beautiful men? Maybe you follow your Branchmaster because he's beautiful under that mask. What are you suggesting? He frowned. Well, you might like men. I'm not one to judge. Shiro chuckled. I'd like to confirm that I am not gay. I like to have a wife and kids, you know. Fair enough. Now then, why don't you contact Nintian? I got a few things to ask him, Shiro said while lying on the bed. Be patient. Branchmaster has other things he needs to do. Otherwise, he'll be the one talking to you instead of me. Che. After checking through the contents, Chinyu contacted Nintian. Soon, his face could be seen on the laptop screen. Before he could say anything, Shiro appeared behind Chinyu. Yo sh asterisk ttyt on. I've done your task. I believe you owe me a rebirth pill. Shiro called out with a grin. Meanwhile, Chinyu gulped slightly while looking up at her face. It was only after he had a good look did he realize that her beauty was completely natural, without any makeup. HN, your attitude's still quite negative towards me, little Snow. Shouldn't you be more polite with me? I am supplying you with your valuable medicine after all. Nantion chuckled. Looking at her current appearance, she had changed quite a bit after he hadn't seen her for a long time. As if I'll be polite with a stalker. Both you and I know that if you weren't higher level than me, you would have lost your ass long ago. Shiro retorted. I won't deny that, but I like to think of myself as a gentleman. After all, I did deal with the other guy for you. He hasn't bothered you in a while now, has he? True. Now I wish you would deal with yourself the same way you dealt with him. I would like a life without stalkers. Well, you interest me after all. I can't help but keep an eye on you. Nantion replied shamelessly. Che, Lilchin catches my eye more than you sh asterisk ttyt on. Ain't that right, Lilchin? You had even exposed your little brother to me a moment ago. Shiro grinned as she decided to mess with both of them. Wait, that was your fault, and you know it. Chinyu cried out in shock. Nantion stayed silent as he wondered about what she had said. Chinyu, you showed her your manhood? He asked after a pause. She broke into my room after I showered. Chinyu replied as he wanted to cry. On one hand, it was a girl that, while beautiful, was just as deadly. Get on her bad side, and you can forget about having an ass. On the other hand, was his branch master that he owed a lot to and clearly had an interest in the girl. For her to say that he caught her eye more than the branch master was akin to a death sentence. To make things worse, the embarrassing situation had even been exposed by her. MN. Chinyu, you remember that male brothel? They pay quite a bit. Why don't you work there from now on? Nantion replied with a smile that wasn't a smile. Branch master. Chinyu paled. Oi sh asterisk ttyt on. You mess with Lil Chun, and do you believe that I won't kidnap him right here and now? Shiro narrowed her eyes and smiled back. Which man in his right mind would let another man near a girl he has interests to? Nantion shrugged. Ho, you jealous? Well, let me tell you this. This princess here ain't easy to get. Even when my life was saved by another B asterisk starred, I felt no romantic feelings for him. Unless I'm the dominator in the relationship, you can forget about it. Plus, you ain't my type to begin with. Shiro said, pouring the harsh truth on him. Silence enveloped the room as Chunyu was especially pale, while Nantion's expression couldn't be seen from behind his mask. If you spend enough time with someone, even if they're not your type, feelings could develop. He replied. F asterisk ck it. People like you don't know when to give up. Shiro rolled her eyes as she couldn't do anything about this. Despite clearly rejecting him, he still stayed the same. I'd like to think of that as one of my redeeming qualities. Nantion replied. Whatever. Anyways, the intel for the raid is in the USB. Where's my pill? Shiro asked, making herself an ice chair to sit on while Chunyu slowly backed away. The more they forget about him, the better. Ba, my Buddha, please help me survive this calamity. God, I pray to you to ensure my safety. Chinyu prayed in his mind. The rebirth pill will arrive soon, and Chinyu will give it to you when it arrives. So what else did you want to ask me? He asked, expressing his intentions to continue helping her despite being rejected. Do you have anything that will help hide my identity or stop people from tracking me in the Elven continent? She asked. It depends on what you need and what level it is. The anti-tracking items might be a bit harder to procure, but as for disguise, don't you have a way already? I do, but I'm not sure if it'll work if I'm heading to the Elven royal family. I'm pretty sure they have things that stop disguises. Shiro replied. That is indeed a little problematic. Give me a few days while I look for it. Nantion nodded. Honestly, if you weren't a stalker, forming a partnership would be quite handy. Shiro admitted since he was akin to a shop where she could find everything she needed. Well, in this day and age, isn't everyone a stalker? Checking each other's social media accounts daily and such. He replied with a shrug. I guess so. Anyways, bye. Shiro grinned and closed the call. Did you just hang up on the branch leader? Chinyu widened his eyes. What? You want me to keep the call going so that he can discuss the male brothel with you? Shiro grinned. No thank you. Chinyu shook his head quickly. Well, it's been fun messing with you too. See you later. Don't forget to give me the pill when it arrives." Shiro chuckled and disappeared from where she stood. Staying silent for a bit, he looked at the laptop with a difficult expression. Could it be that I'm her type? He muttered as he thought back to the conversation between Shiro and Nantian. "You're thinking too much. What's your number, by the way? I need a way to contact you." Shiro replied, appearing in front of him again. £% end. "Here, take it and leave. Stop invading my privacy." Shinyu cried out and handed her a slip of paper. "Thanks, but don't think about it too much. You ain't on my radar for a boyfriend yet." "No one is." "Well, maybe." "No, never mind. You don't need to know." Shiro smiled and left for good. Making her way through the city, Shiro decided to meet up with her daughters first since she had a bad feeling in her heart. Arriving at the canteen, she paused for a moment as she felt like she just had a heart attack. Looking at Ian, who was being restrained from entering the kitchen, especially with a pile of empty plates and bowls behind her, Shiro wanted nothing more than to rewind time and see how the hell this happened. "Ian," Shiro shouted out as she stormed over. "Mom, they're not letting me have any food. They're starving me," Ian complained. The people that were restraining Ian paled as they didn't want to get on the elder's bad side. "Shut it," Shiro replied instantly and slapped her in the head. "What's going on?" Shiro asked the staff. You see, your daughter had eaten so much that we didn't have enough food for the other disciples in the canteen. So we barred her from ordering for a short, while since we needed to feed the other disciples as well." The staff replied truthfully. "Is this true, Lisa?" Shiro asked, turning to Lysandra. "Unfortunately, it is. Big Sis had eaten quite a bit." Lysandra nodded. "Heiss, I apologize. I'll take her with me now." Shiro smiled apologetically and grabbed Ian by the scruff of her neck. Leaving the canteen, Shiro sighed tiredly. "I should never let you go to a canteen without me around. Next time, you're staying in the room." "Eh? Why? This is bullying," Ian protested. Ignoring Ian, Shiro turned to Lysandra. "Lisa, next time, you should look after Ian. While she is technically your big sis in a way, you know how she is." "Got it," Lysandra nodded. "With that out of the way, let's find Lyrica and the others. We need to come clean with who we are." Shiro sighed as she couldn't help but feel some uncertainty regarding what was going to happen next. "It'll be fine, Mom. With how Lyrica acts around you, I'm sure she doesn't mind the fact that you're a monster." Lysandra smiled as she could clearly tell that Lyrica had feelings for Shiro. "You sure?" Shiro pulled a difficult face. "It's not like you to be this way, Mom. Just have faith." Lysandra chuckled. "Fair enough." Shiro nodded. Sending a message to Lyrica, they decided to meet up in the room that was provided to them by the faction. Arriving before the door, she braced herself and knocked gently. Coming, Lyrica's voice rang out as she opened the door. "Come in." She smiled. Inside the room, Madison and Sylvia were already waiting patiently. "So what did you want to tell us?" Lyrica asked, gesturing for them to sit on a chair. Closing the door and making sure that no one could spy on them, Shiro looked at the face in seriousness. "I haven't been truthful to you three about my identity," she said seriously. "We know. Someone like you couldn't just appear out of nowhere, you know." Madison smiled. "No, you can say that I literally appeared out of nowhere." "Lyrica, remember when I told you that I wasn't technically human?" Shiro asked, turning to Lyrica. "Yes, I do." She nodded. "Well, back then, I was a monster. A snow girl. I took over a corpse and woke up in a dungeon back in New York. My body was cold because of my race. I couldn't talk either because I was a monster. After leveling up to 50, I evolved into a sylph." Shiro confessed and revealed her true stats. Shiro LVL 60 Mystic Sylph Queen. HP 2431, 250/2 for 31, 250. MP 5, 593, 750/5, 593, 750. I was never a human, nor was I a mage. I'm just a sentient monster that luckily obtained a disguise skill to hide my true identity. The same goes for Lysandra. She's a soul-bound archangel, previously the light goddess's incarnation. Silence enveloped the room as all three of them widened their eyes in shock. Looking at her stats being revealed to them, they knew that she wasn't kidding. There had been several clues they picked up over time, but they never believed that her true identity was actually that of a monster. Humanity's enemy. While Lyrica might be able to accept it a little since she herself was a half-monster in a way, the others couldn't be the same. Despite being her friends, they needed some time to digest this information. I don't expect you to accept all of this quickly since I wouldn't be able to either. You can either message me or contact me, but I'll leave for now. Don't worry about your lives since I didn't do anything. You can tell people and nothing will happen. Shiro sighed and turned to the door. Opening it, she left without another word while her two daughters followed behind her. Looking at Shiro's back, Lyrica couldn't help but want to call out, but something seemed to be stuck in her throat, stopping her from making a sound. Asterisk clack. As the door closed, the three of them stayed in silence. So she was a monster from the start. Madison couldn't help but mutter. We've been partying with a monster? Shouldn't monsters all want to kill humans? Sylvia frowned. Are you too afraid? Lyrica asked. I'm not sure. I can definitely say I'm surprised though. It somewhat explains how she could be so ruthless against her enemies. But even if she is a sentient monster, it doesn't explain how she has so much experience in fighting. Madison sighed and leaned back slightly. Amen, that's true. Sylvia nodded. She's definitely different compared to other monsters. She didn't try to kill innocents for her own gain. She even risked herself to help us. During the mutated dungeon, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't even have gotten out alive. Not only that, she could have abandoned us long ago, but no, she didn't. Lyrica said slowly as she clutched her fists. For her to tell us now, it must mean that she has no choice. We've all interacted with Shiro long enough to know that she's trustworthy. In some aspects, she's more human than some of the people we've seen. Silence filled the room once again, and Madison stood up. I need to go apologize, she said. Sylvia tilted her head in confusion. For her to muster up the courage to confess such a big secret to us, and for us to not respond, is insensitive. Have you noticed that she hadn't done anything to us? During our time in the dungeon, whenever she reveals a secret, she has always made a backup plan to keep that secret, such as when she used her guns. Lyrica reminded as Sylvia nodded. How could she forget? Her two friends, that would have endangered them, were killed by Shiro the moment they tried to reveal her secret. She understood that Shiro was a cautious person, and for her to open up to them, especially since she was a monster, was a huge gamble for her. She trusts us. For her, we're people that she can share a dangerous life secret with. What kind of friends are we if we can't even see her past her race? Humans can be just as dangerous as monsters. Shiro is Shiro. Despite being a monster, she's still our friend. Standing up, Lyrica walked to the door. She was going to find Shiro and tell her that she didn't mind. Before she could open the door, two hands held her shoulders. We're a party after all. Who said that this can't be a new start for humanity? A party of both humans and monsters. I like the sound of that. Madison grinned. The same goes with me. Only those that are daring can leave a mark in history. No one has heard of a party constructed of monsters and humans. Being the first in history is a privilege that not many could experience. Sylvia smiled. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go tell our little queen about our choice. Lyrica smiled happily. While the three came to an agreement, Shiro was walking towards the Elder's Tower. She wanted more details regarding when the Elven Royals would arrive. From what she learned from all the information she had access to, even if Lyrica rejected their proposal, they most likely weren't people who would take no for an answer. For these people, unless you could suppress them, it's best that you compromise a little. Stroke their ego and come to a beneficial agreement for them in order to earn some time to get stronger. Even if they reject me, I guess I'll do them one last favor before I leave. Shiro thought, preparing herself for the worst that could happen. Arriving at Natasha's office, Shiro knocked on the door lightly. Come in, Natasha called out. Entering the office, Shiro saw her sitting behind a desk full of paperwork. Seems like you're quite busy. She smiled. Heis. Unlike you, I have proper elder work to do. I'm so envious of you, Natasha replied while leaning back on her chair. Well, too bad we didn't sign the same contract now, did we? Shiro chuckled and glanced at some of her documents. Seems like you're preparing everything for when the royals arrive. Yeah, we have to be careful about how we treat them. If it goes wrong, it might become a diplomatic issue, and that's something no one wants. Plus, from what I can see on the documents that they sent, they've got 4 level 100 escorts and 1 level 120 assistant following the royal that will arrive. Natasha said, showing her the document. 4 level 100s and 1 level 120. That's quite problematic. Shiro frowned, as the level 120 was the biggest problem. They should give us some face since the city lord is here after all, Nadash reminded. But even then, we should be careful. They're a whole nation and we're just a faction. She sighed. MN. I see. Shiro nodded but didn't think much of it. In the end, even if they were a nation, they probably won't spare too much manpower searching around the world. Please behave when we're meeting the royals. Nadash couldn't help but smile wearily after seeing her expression. While she hadn't interacted with Shiro for too long, she knew that the girl in front of her would cause all kinds of troubles. Hell, last time she injured a large group of disciples and took their resources. No one had heard of an elder harming their own faction in this way. Who do you think I am? Am I someone to mess up such an important meeting? Shiro smiled. Yes. 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 Ian, Lysandra and Nadash thought the same thing when they heard what she said. They knew that the day where Shiro didn't cause trouble would be the day the world was going to end. **** what? Don't look at me that way. I'm not that idiotic as to ruin the meeting here. Shiro coughed. I'll ruin it outside where they don't know my identity. She thought secretly. However, the stares of suspicion from all three of them showed that they didn't believe her. Well, just behave yourself, please. They're arriving in 4 days, and I have so many things to sort out. Nadash sighed to herself and gestured for them to leave. Fine. Take care of yourself, okay? Shiro nodded and left the room. After Shiro left the room, Nadash looked down at a letter that she had received from the faction leader. Keep Shiro out of trouble and make sure she doesn't stand out. Yuki. I'm afraid that's kinda hard, faction leader. Nadash sighed. ####. After leaving the room, Shiro saw Lyrica, Madison, and Silvio waiting outside of the tower. Have they decided on what they think of me? She thought to herself. You two wait in my room, Shiro said as she phased through the walls. Looking at Shiro, who had left them alone, Ian looked over at Lysandra. Lilisa, why don't you calm GH? We're going back to our room, like Mum said. I'm not letting you cause her more trouble, Lysandra said, cutting Ian off by restraining her with a rope made from condensed mana and dragged her away. Abuse. I call abuse. Do you not see me as your big sis? Ian cried out. I do, but you should behave once in a while, big sis. Lysandra smiled. Meanwhile, Shiro landed in front of the trio. So then, shall we discuss this in my room? She smiled softly. Sure. They nodded since they understood that this was a sensitive topic. It would be bad if others overheard them. As they arrived at Shiro's room, they saw Ian restrained in the corner while Lysandra sat on the bed and kept a close eye on her. You're back, Mum. Lysandra turned to her. MN, say, why is your sister retrained in the corner? Shiro asked. She wanted to go elsewhere. A good job. Shiro nodded as she instantly understood the situation. Gesturing for the three of them to sit down wherever they want, Shiro sat on her chair and crossed her legs. Taking a deep breath, Lyrica looked at Shiro with determination. It doesn't matter what race you are. The fact that you have done us all a big favor in our lives is unchangeable. As you've clearly demonstrated, you're not like other monsters. She smiled. Shiro, honestly, while your race did come as a surprise, it was more like finding out that your friend is royalty or something. Madison chuckled as Shiro's smile twitched slightly. And what about you? Shiro turned to Sylvia. I'm the same. I'm also a part of this party, and I'll support it to the end. Plus, it doesn't matter if you're a monster. I mean, some people see Lyrica as a monster since she's an elf, and we clearly know that she isn't a danger to humans. Sylvia chuckled softly. MN. Shiro nodded as her smile grew. It wasn't the insane sadistic smile she had when facing enemies, nor was it a polite smile that she would put on when talking to people. No, it was a genuine smile that had fully blossomed on her face. One that made people think that she was free of worries and had nothing trouble her in her life. Screw it. Come here, you lot. Shiro chuckled and decided to do something a little out of character. Walking over to the three, she brought them in for a hug with her mana so that they couldn't reject her. Wha? Shiro. Lyrica panicked as her face became red. Madison and Sylvia were the same since they never imagined that Shiro would hug them like this. Lysandra smiled softly as she was happy that Shiro managed to get this weight off of her heart. As for Ian, She was the same, but she had bigger problems at hand. She could no longer feel her legs as they became numb. Shiro? I'm afraid we'll have to cut this hug short since Lyrica might pass out in a second. Madison shifted her body and pointed at Lyrica. Amen? All right. Shiro nodded and let go of the three. Say, Lyrica, are you bad with women? Is that why you can't handle close contact? Shiro asked with some confusion. Yeah. Lyrica nodded as she tried to calm her heart rate down. Seeing this, Madison glanced at Sylvia and sighed at the same time. This clueless idiot that only knows how to fight, they thought. However, little did they know, they were wrong about Shiro. She could tell what the duo were thinking, but said nothing and only smiled. I guess I'm a little dense, but I'm not that dense. She thought to herself, understanding that Lyrica may hold some feelings for her. She could only let it develop for now. Whether or not it was feelings of dependency, due to her being Lyrica's first friend, or the fact that it was real romantic feeling could only be revealed with time. As Lyrica met more people and had some time away from her, Shiro knew that it would become clear. Plus, there were so many other questions regarding her identity and potential enemy that she had to set this aside for now. Kuromi had an enemy that was able to make the B-ranked Yuki warn her about his danger. Until I understand the full picture, hidden dangers lurk everywhere, Shiro thought to herself. If she wasn't careful, they could potentially be hunted by an A-ranked individual. In other words, a Tier 5 powerhouse. Speaking of which, Madison, you know what you said earlier? Shiro asked as she turned to Madison. Amen? What did I say? Madison asked as she was a little confused. Regarding how me revealing that I'm a monster is like a friend saying that they are royalty. Well, it turns out that Lyrica is elven royalty. Not only that, they're visiting us in 4 days and I can say that there is a high chance that they hold some hostility against Lyrica. Shiro said, dropping this bombshell on them. Even Lyrica was surprised since she didn't know that the royal family was coming for her in 4 days. Madison widened her eyes. In less than a day, they found out that Shiro was a monster and that Lyrica was royalty. Holy crap. If they're hostile, that's bad for us, isn't it? Madison forced a smile. Yup. Hearing her nonchalant response, they couldn't help but feel slightly annoyed. What do you mean by they're visiting us? Lyrica asked as her face was slightly pale. The Elven royal family is coming in 4 days to take you away back to the Elven continent. Shiro repeated. Sitting down, she handed her a document that she had secretly printed. When she was in Natasha's office, she took the chance to memorize some of the documents revolving around the nobles. Lyrica stayed silent as she read about their arrival confirmation. Taking a deep breath, she decided to come clean about her background as well. I don't know what day it is today, but seems like all of us are coming clean with our secrets. Lyrica chuckled. Well, you don't have to worry about me. Both my parents are alive and well. They're your average government worker. Madison rolled her eyes since she didn't have a mysterious background like the two of them. And you already know about me. Sylvia smiled. Amen. Where should I start? Lyrica asked. Wherever you want. We got plenty of time. Shiro replied. ####. After listening to Lyrica's story, Shiro got the general gist of what was happening. Her father was the king, and her mother married into the royal family. Her father was Edvamar Valenstein, one of the strongest elven warriors in their era. As for her mother, she was called Talia Feha, also known as the Elven Saint. However, before they met, he had been forced into several political marriages that he couldn't reject. Her father placed the people above his own happiness and only stopped this when he met her mother. Distancing himself with the political marriages, he focused solely on the family he made with Lyrica's mother. Lyrica didn't know about the inner conflict of what had happened, but she knew that the elders weren't too happy about this. She guessed that it must be because the elders had made a move to deal with her mother that her father was implicated. With both of her parents dead, she was very vulnerable, and her cousins were more than happy to eliminate someone that had a chance of inheriting the throne. With the royal family in the state of conflict, my mom's maid managed to evacuate me to New York and make all the preparations required for me to live a quiet life without having to worry about the state of the royal family. Lyrica sighed. Meanwhile, Shiro had a small frown on her face. That's impossible. There's no way that they would just let a lowly maid evacuate her that easily. No matter how high level the maid was, she would have been caught. Someone must have interfered with the matter, and ensured Lyrica's survival. But who? She narrowed her eyes in suspicion. Is there a problem? Lyrica asked as she could tell that Shiro was worried about something. Whenever she pulled this expression, she was always in deep thought. "Amen, a small one, but it doesn't matter for now. I'll get my answer soon. However, the fact that they're putting their attention on you is a little troubling. Seems like we were a bit hasty when we power leveled you up before." Shiro shook her head. "What if we just run? Surely they can't continue to chase us through the world, right?" Sylvia suggested. "What if they send lots of people over level 100 though? A single attack from them will kill us. Even now, for level 100s are coming in 4 days while they're also followed by a level 120 powerhouse." Madison reminded. "While I doubt that they'll set that much manpower on us, they can still set a bounty for others to kill us." Shiro denied. Not only that, this wasn't limited to the underground. The royal family could dub them as terrorists or international criminals. Once that happened, not only will be hunted down by both sides, this will also warn her enemy about her survival. "Damn, Kuromi, you've got quite a lot of enemies, don't you?" Shiro thought to herself. "Then what do you suggest we do, Shiro?" Lyrica asked as she sighed tiredly. While she loved the memories that she had with her parents, she hated her identity as a princess of the elven race. If it wasn't for this, she could just be enjoying life with her friends. Honestly, I'm about as lost as you are. If it wasn't the royal family, I can somewhat handle it. But the fact that they have all this manpower and persuasion over the world is troubling. It'll be akin to staging a coup, but with just the 6 of us." Shiro shrugged helplessly. One of their options would be to try to convince them that Lyrica doesn't want to take the throne, but Shiro doubted that they will accept that. Even if they did, as long as Lyrica continues to level up, they'll keep an eye on her. "Just level up as much as you can for now. I'll think of something eventually. After all, we can't just do nothing for these 4 days." Shiro smiled. "Are you not going to join us?" Lyrica asked. It had been a while since they last partied up. Sure, why not?" Shiro nodded. She was just going to use these days to refine and create sustainable weapons anyways. Spending it in a dungeon wasn't a bad choice either, since she could still refine the weapons while in combat. It was just that the progress was going to slow down remarkably. Once that was out of the way, they decided to talk about what each other had been up to recently. Lyrica's group had mostly done faction quests and level ups in the dungeon. Occasionally, they would go to the arena for some experience, but that wasn't often. "Say, why are you lot still level 50? Shouldn't you have classed up already?" Shiro asked, as this had been bugging her. She's seen them a few times now, and they were always level 50. She had assumed that this was them laying low and using the disguise stone, but from the way they described the process of gathering materials, it seemed like they hadn't classed up yet. We're still level 50 since we haven't gotten everything for our class up yet." Lyrica replied with a scratch of her cheek. Shouldn't it be relatively easy?" Shiro tilted her head. "What was your class up requirement?" Madison asked out of curiosity. "Well, my original choice had changed and became a hidden class. But previously, I needed 4 tier 3 elemental attunements, 1,000 C-class mana stones, a C rank raid completion with more than 30% contribution, a fairy element core, and a corrupted demon core." Shiro replied nonchalantly. "PFFFF. You needed what?" They all widened their eyes in horror. Initially, when they saw their class up requirements, they had thought that it was hard. But after hearing about Shiro's requirement, they realized that they had it easy. What? If anything, the hardest parts out of this was the 2 cores and the raid. Hell, even if I didn't do the raid initially in the quest world, then I would have done it a few days ago when I finished the emergency raid in Kairosa. Shiro tilted her head. "However, with that being said, if I didn't get lucky with the quest with the rewards, I doubt I would have unlocked my current class of being the Sylph Queen." She admitted. "You know, a normal class up shouldn't be this ridiculous. Even just the raid completion is borderline impossible, you know." Madison said as the corner of her lips twitched slightly. "Is it? I mean, the cores might take some luck, but the raid should be okay if you're skilled enough." Shiro furrowed her brows a little. "Why, what are your upgrade condition?" she asked curiously. "Some materials, solo C-ranked dungeons, and only 200 C-ranked mana stones." Madison replied. "Same for me, but rarer materials and more C-ranked mana stones." Lyrica followed up. "I just need to heal a lot and study knowledge." Sylvia smiled wearily. Huh. Hearing their responses, she now knew how ridiculous her class up was. While she did have an idea at first, she never paid attention since in her first life, she was propelled to level 200 plus straight away. Well, we should be able to get you some materials then. In these 4 days, let's prioritize on classing you up. Shiro smiled. I don't think I can class up in 4 days though. The amount of healing I need to do is a little ridiculous. Sylvia sighed. As a healer, her combat prowess was naturally low. Therefore, her class-up options revolved around her support. But the fact that she had to heal 1 billion points of health was a little ridiculous for her. Despite her efforts, she had only managed to heal around 200 million points. To make matters worse, this was the result of a month's worth of work in dungeons and around the faction. Don't worry about that. I have a plan for you. As for Lyrica and Maddie, I'll supply you with the money so you can buy your materials. Hopefully anyways. If not, tell me what they are now and I'll order them for you. Shiro suggested. You could. The three were taken aback. Fufufu, of course. If you think about it, I have connections to a blacksmith, tailor, and now an all-round merchant. Shiro grinned, dubbing Nantion as the all-round merchant. Hey, you've been quite busy. Lyrica couldn't help but praise. Well, Mum is never idle after all. She'll probably overwork herself if she was human. Lysandra chipped in with a smile. True. Shiro nodding in agreement. So anyways, tell me about your classes and what you need. Lyrica, you first. My class that I'm upgrading into is called the Solari Blade Dancer. It has several benefits regarding attack power and speed. It also enhances my race to Ascended Elf. As for the items, I need a Solari Core, Tempered Blade Essence, and an Ascendant Stone. Solari classes are indeed not too bad. I had to fight against the Solari Arch Knight the last time I went to Kairosa. It was somewhat annoying to fight against, but if the class was used correctly, it can be very dangerous. Shiro nodded and noted down the things that she needed. Wait, Shiro, you fought against a Solari Arch Knight? Sylvia asked as a theory popped in her head. Yeah. Could it be that he was Kier Osbar? You know him? Lots of people know him. But setting that aside, could it be that your Nitri, the one that had made an enemy out of several large families in Kairosa and had even rumored to have killed a level 85 mage? Sylvia asked as things started to link up. Emin? Yeah, that was me. But that's not important. What's important is what Madison needs to class up. Don't dodge such a big issue. Sylvia retorted in her mind. While Shiro didn't want to cause problems in regard to a country, apparently, she had no problems completely flipping off a city. So, I'm just going to ignore the fact that you pissed off the higher echelon of a city and tell you about my class. So you know how my current class is Demon Knight, yeah? Well, my next class is an enhanced version of this. Demonic Shield Guardian is my next class. What I need is an enhanced demonic source, Hellfire Soul Gem, and a crystallized demon essence. Madison replied, listing out the items that she needed. All three are quite rare indeed. Enhanced demonic source could only be found in high-class C-ranked demons. Hellfire Soul Gem is found after slaying an elite Hellfire Golem, and the crystallized demon essence can only be made through alchemy. What rank is your class? Shiro asked. Rank. Madison tilted her head. Yeah, like the lowest class that can only bring you to level 20 is the lowest E-rank class. These are classes like Swordsman. My previous evolution of Snowgirl was at most a D-rank class, even with the 5 stars. But once I evolve into a Snow Woman, it becomes a B-ranked class. This means that I can upgrade it with stars till I'm the peak of B rank. At that point, I'll have to class up to something else, but with added bonuses, of course. I'm just wondering what rank class your Demonic Shield Guardian is for it to require those 3 items. Shiro explained. That's the first time I heard of that. Madison replied in confusion. Same here. Lyrica agreed. Well, it's not too surprising, I guess, since only classes higher than a B rank will get notifications. I was just wondering if your next class was B rank or higher. Shiro smiled. I don't know since I never got a notification for it. But on that note, just curious, but what rank is our class? Mystic Sylph Queen sounds domineering as F***CK you know. Madison asked. Me? Triple S. But I'm not too sure on the limit of this class. Tier 5 classes are limited by A-ranked classes, meaning Tier 6 Legend is S-class. I know that Tier 7 is Demigod, so that's an SS class. But with each class up, the gap between them increases all the more. If that's the case, would SS class only be in the middle of tier 6? Would there be higher classes than triple S? If so, what are they called and what is their power like? Could it be called quadruple S or would it be a different letter? X-ranked class. Alpha-ranked class. Quite interesting. Shiro replied as it slowly became a monologue. Sorry, lost myself a little then. She paused, realizing what had happened. In her past life, despite having the artificial triple S ranked class that was recognized by the system, she had never fully realized its potential. This meant that her current subclass, Snowmancer, could evolve much like other classes gained through the system. But the question then becomes, what level did she need to be for it to evolve? What can it do? Could she become a machine goddess like what the cultists had made her out to be in her old life? Since Snowmancer is a jack-of-all-trades type class, it meant that once it focused down a singular path, its power output would multiply by a few folds. But would that be worth it? The main concept of her Snowmancer class was to counter everything. Once she focused on one aspect, it would only lead to a weakness appearing within her setup. This would be going against the very foundations that the Snowmancer class was built upon. But at the same time, she estimated that in terms of power, her class may lose out once she reached the demigod rank. However, this is where her current class came in. If her subclass was to lose out in power regarding one area, she'll supplement that with her main class. Normally, people could have alchemist or blacksmith as a subclass since it was never as strong as their main class. But unlike other people, her old main class became her subclass. With all of this combined, not only was she a monster that had double the stats, but she was also a dual-class wielding powerhouse that could leave adventurers in the dust regarding total power output. So much to think about regarding my potential, but that's for the future. Right now, I need to focus on developing my Sylph class till the time my Snowmancer class is given the option to evolve. Shiro thought to herself and turned to Sylvia. So what about you? You said that you'll need to heal HP, right? How much do you need? Shiro asked. Raising up a single finger, Sylvia smiled wearily. 1 billion health points are needed to be healed for me to class up. In terms of studying and the such, I've almost finished it in my spare time. Pardon? 1 billion. Shiro raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Sylvia sighed. Oh, only 1 billion. I thought it would be trillion. Then we'll have a real problem. Shiro replied, returning her expression back to normal. What the F***? Sylvia couldn't help but curse in confusion. 1 trillion. 1 billion was enough of a problem as it is. What do you mean 1 trillion? She shouted in her mind. Well, since it's only 1 billion, we can crank that out in a few days. The only thing I need to check is whether or not you're prepared for it. Shiro grinned. Everyone par from Een paled since she had asked them this question every time she gave them torturous training. If she was to give you training without asking about if you were prepared or not, you're safe. But once she does, oh Lord, may God help you. Gulp. Would you let me go if I said I'm not ready? Sylvia asked. Nope.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.